Good morning, and I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to travel with some other Galileans down to Houston to the National Youth Gathering. So we right now are on the bus, and we should be about an hour and a half into our trip. So we're probably coming. We're probably around Ames right now, riding on the bus on the way to Houston. And I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to share that experience with some of our Galileans. So the Gospel according to Mark chapter 4, verses 35 to 41. So on that day when evening came, he had said to them, that's Jesus, said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with him. And a great storm arose, and waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So in our text for today, we see the fear of the disciples. Fear is a very powerful thing. We've all felt it. We've all dealt with it. There's fear of loss, fear of the unknown, fear of pain, fear of death, fear of danger and a hostile world around us. Actually, I know I've mentioned this before, that the greatest fear that people have is the fear of speaking in public, which I do all the time. And did you know that the seventh one on the list, number 7, is death? I don't know what 2 through 6 are, but they must be pretty horrible. But there are 2 different kinds of fear in this gospel story today, and fear motivates us. In the first kind of fear that the disciples feel, terror at the sea, they are motivated to panic and to turn to Jesus and wake him up and question him. "Do you not care about us?" And then the second kind of fear comes. Jesus has been teaching, and he's been going around along the Sea of Galilee and telling people about the kingdom of God. He's been using parables. He told the parable of the sower, the farmer planting seed, the parable of the mustard seed that starts out really small and grows to be an amazing, great plant that offers shade to the birds of the air. And Jesus is tired. He's exhausted. It's been a long day. Lots of people have been demanding his time and energy and effort, and now he's tired. So they get into the boat, and they're heading across the Sea of Galilee. But the calm doesn't last. Soon a great and violent windstorm arises. The Sea of Galilee is known for these kind of winds. It's down in a valley with high hills and even mountains on the sides, and the wind comes through that pass between the hills, and it drives the waves into a frenzy. And so this is what the fishermen are experiencing. They know what it's like to be on the Sea of Galilee in a windstorm. They very possibly have known other fishermen who've died in storms just like this. And so they are afraid. And it's the kind of fear that that we feel in the face of something that is oblivious to us and our lives, who we are. The wind doesn't care about us. The sea and the waves, they don't care about the disciples. It's like the disciples don't even exist from within all of the chaos and the world that's surrounding them. And so in the midst of this, they turn to Jesus. They're confronted by this fear, and they turn to Jesus. And in their fear, they ask him that question: do you not care that we are perishing? Because in the midst of this storm, Jesus is sleeping on a pillow in the back of the boat, a nice comfy cushion. And he awakes. He awakes at their fear, but he doesn't share their fear. He doesn't assume their terror. Instead, Jesus himself is calm. He looks around, he sees the fear of the disciples, and he looks around at the wind and the waves, and the Bible verse tells us that Jesus rebukes the wind. Now, the word rebuke is kind of the same thing that, when you were kids and you're all running around and making a lot of noise, and, an adult comes up and says, "Hey, settle down." That's a rebuke. And so Jesus looks to the wind, and he rebukes the wind. He speaks to the wind, and he says, "Settle down. Settle down." Yeah, those may not be the exact words he uses, but that's what the adults would tell me all the time as a kid when I was getting a little too rambunctious. And so Jesus rebukes the wind. But here's the interesting thing. Here's the fun thing, is he then turns to the waves in the storm, and he says, "Peace, be still." Now that rebuking and that command to be still is the same kind of command that Jesus gave to the man earlier in Mark who was demon-possessed. "Peace, be still, come out of him." It's almost as if Jesus is treating the wind and the waves as if they themselves are demons in need of being calmed. Actually, when he says, "Peace, be still," to the waves, the image that comes to my mind is of, we were riding horses the other day, Anna and I and her friend and a couple of others. And one of the horses got upset and was rearing up and whinnying, and the handler of the horse came up and grabbed the reins and stroked the horse's nose and started whispering to the horse in its ear, and the horse calmed down. That's the image that I have of Jesus and calming these waves, almost as if he's speaking to a living being, a living beast, and calming the beast. Now, the disciples are wondering what in the world is going on here, because, they knew of holy men and other preachers and rabbis who could cast out demons, but not in the wind. They could not control the force of nature. And so Jesus turns to them, and he says, "Why are you afraid?" Well, we know why they're afraid. They're human. They're only human. And of course, they're afraid because of the chaos and the terror around them. But then The other fear, remember I talked about that. There were two kinds of fear that the disciples expressed in this gospel lesson, in this story. And the other fear is an awe. And that's where that question comes in. Who then is this that can even calm the wind and the waves, that even the wind and the waves, even the storm obeys him? The terror of the storm has gone, but now they're left with a different kind of fear, a reverent awe. Rudolf Otto is an author that called this kind of fear the mysterium tremendum, the grand mystery. The mystery of how can Jesus be who he is? How can he accomplish the things that he accomplishes? And that's why the disciples of Jesus say, who is this? Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? Even after all they have seen, they still ask, they still fear. And we do as well. We fear the unknown. We fear the things that we cannot control. We fear to put the power and control into the hands of someone, and we don't know what they're going to do with it. That's part of the fear that I think some people have right now as we think about moving into a shared ministry with two other congregations, with St. Paul and Our Saviors in Mason City. It's unknown. It's new. It's different. And we don't know all of the answers to everybody's question. We don't know exactly how all of this is going to work out. But what we do know is that the one who is able to rebuke the wind and the waves, the one who is able to calm the storm as if it were a beast, the one who is able to save the disciples on the stormy sea of Galilee, is the one who says to us, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Peace, be still. Jesus comes to us and he says, you may not have all the answers. You may not know what is coming in the future. You may not understand, because we don't. We don't know what the future will hold. But Jesus says, peace, be still. Be calm and keep moving forward, because I, who was able to calm the wind and the waves, who was able to eliminate the chaos of the storm, I am the one who are leading you into this new adventure, this new ministry possibility. Years ago, a friend of mine, her son completed suicide, and I did his funeral. And she gave me a t-shirt. She gave me a t-shirt afterwards that I still have and I still cherish. It says, we don't know what the future holds, but we know who holds the future. The disciples in the boat that day, when they saw the storm coming up, they had no idea what Jesus was going to do. When they turned to him lying on the cushion in the back of the boat, sleeping on the pillow, they had no idea what he was going to do. They just went and asked the question, do you not care that we are perishing? And Jesus did. He did care that they were perishing. He did care that they were in the midst of the storm. And his answer to that was to calm the storm. Peace, be still. And Christ comes to us on a daily basis and says, do not be afraid. Peace, be still. I've got this.